Hello there. Several of you have been worried about a final exam. I'm Mr. Gibbons. I'm your fine arts theater professor. You shouldn't be. I'm not that kind of professor. I'm not going to tell you that this is going to be the hardest exam of your life, because it's not. I am, however, going to go over everything that you need to know in a very short period of time. So make sure you watch this video. If you have a pen and pencil, you probably want to take some notes. At the beginning of this class, we looked at ancient Greek theater, which is the foundation. It is what we understand today. What we understand today about theater extends in so many ways back to the ancient Greeks. And they had three kinds of plays. There were tragedies, which if you don't like a sad play, novel, film, then tragedies is not your cup of tea. Comedies, although they probably meant something a little bit differently than we do with that. And then something called a satyr play, which was a half man, half beast sort of thing. And that one got a little on the raunchy side, which would lead to the Romans and kind of their approach to theater in the next generation of world powers. But no, we don't need to talk about the Romans, just the Greeks. Tragedies, comedies, satyr plays. If we flip to the modern day, I wonder if you know what is the longest continuously running musical in the United States. Hamilton's a wonderful musical, but it's not that. Beauty and the Beast is a wonderful musical, but it's not that. The longest running, continuously running musical in the U.S. is The Phantom of the Opera. Some of you may not have heard of that, know about that, may know about a movie version, but that is the longest continuously running musical on Broadway. If we look back at ancient Greek theater, one of the things that we get is that the backdrop is called a skena. It's S-K-E-N-E, from which we get the English word scene. Backdrop. It didn't change, it didn't move, but it was that part that framed the action that was happening on the stage. We looked at a modern tragedy this semester, which is a play called Death of a Salesman, about a salesman named Willy Loman. I teach it because it's more accessible than ancient Greek plays. I don't love it. If you like tragedy, if you like sad things, then read or watch Death of a Salesman. It's a rough one. When the Greeks turned over to the Romans, one of the things that era had in common was that certain characters wore certain things all the time. In fact, that would persist maybe all the way up until today in some instances, but certainly during those years. And one of the things is that a tunic was a symbol, a sign that that person, that character, whether male or female, probably male, but could have been female, was a slave. So tunic, you see somebody coming out in that short tunic, then you know, oh, that person is a slave. You don't have to know exactly who they are, but you know what they do. When we flip forward, funnily enough, after the Romans, there's about 1,200 years where we don't have a theater in the way that we mean that today, because the church, the Catholic Church, is in charge, and we're only doing certain types of things. But after that, we kind of bring back what was happening in the Roman period of theater in Italy and that region, and it was called Commedia dell'arte. And again, it was driven by you knew who the character was by what he or she was wearing, and almost every character wore a mask, except there were always these lovers called the innamorati, and the lovers never wore a mask. You always knew who they were, and they were always very rom-comish. It's very Disney-esque, and there was always love at the end. In Commedia dell'arte, there were also servants that were known as zani, Z-A-N-N-I, from which we get the English word zany, crazy. They were characters who did this. And so those were zany servants. Shakespeare, whoever Shakespeare was, or whoever Shakespeare wasn't, if you're a conspiracy theorist, wrote a lot of things. He did not write Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, although those are two characters in one of his plays, but he did not write that play. In Commedia dell'arte, there's a character called Harlequin, and he carries a slapstick, which is literally two pieces of wood with a hinge, so that when he's about to do something funny, he creeps up behind you and goes, slap, and you're supposed to jump, and then it's supposed to be funny. We have a modern version where we talk about slapstick comedy, which is this very in-your-face, hey, this is about to happen sort of comedy, and Commedia dell'arte was like that. When we get to the late 1800s, we studied a play by written by a man named Henrik Ibsen, and it's called A Doll's House. A house was scandalous for his time because of the choices made by the characters, but this is during a period in theater where we're trying to be realistic, and Ibsen felt like he was really depicting true life. And Ibsen had a hard life. His father was an alcoholic, and he was not one to turn away from the hard things of life. Then the last play we talked about is one written by Thornton Wilder, the only play of his you can quote. It's called Our Town. It's set in a small community of Grover's Corner, New Hampshire. And it has kind of an interesting fact that the lady who played the lead on Broadway, Martha Scott, was also the one who played the same character in the movie adaptation not very long after that. So remember the name Martha Scott. We didn't get to Japanese drama, but one of the forms of Japanese theater is called Noh, N-O-H. That's a different sort of thing, and I would encourage you to look that up. However, when you get to those two questions, I'm going to give you credit because we didn't talk about them. So we'll move along. One of my favorite shows that I've ever been in is called West Side Story. It's a modern-day Romeo and Juliet written in the 1950s, pitting two racially charged groups against one another. Again, a modern tragedy that I had you study was Death of a Salesman. There's a word in Greek that means the really real. It's ousia, O-U-S-I-A. You should know that. That which is really real at the core of life. We have done some things on this campus from a recent hit musical movie, which is The Greatest Showman. And if you haven't seen that, I'd encourage you to do so. It's a great story. Don't believe it's supposed to be, theoretically about the showman P.T. Barnum. Not very historically accurate, but some great music and a great story. So, good luck. Make sure you know everything in this video, okay? Have a great day.